gouvernement, projet de loi amendant du gouvernement commune. Reprise du débat en deuxième lecture du projet de loi C3, loi modifiant la loi sur la citoyenneté 2025.
So resuming debate, the member for Riding Mountain.
Morning, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, today we debate a very familiar piece of legislation to this House that has been brought back from previous parliaments. Bill C3 may be newly introduced, but the substance of the bill is more of the same. It's the same broken car that the Liberals tried to drive through this House last year with a different coat of paint. Let's be clear that it was originally a Conservatives legislation from the Senate. S245 was a private member's bill containing provisions to address lost Canadians. Conservatives were supportive of the original substance of that bill, but thanks to the Liberal government, the bill was significantly amended and eventually stalled at report stage. In May 2024, the Liberal government tabled Bill C-71, which drastically went beyond the original scope of Bill S-245. So we started with S-245, then C-71. Now we're dealing with Bill C-3. Bill C-3 has three separate pieces of information that must be understood individually. The first part is citizenship by descent. Mr. Speaker, we may not agree on everything in this House, but I believe we can all agree that becoming a Canadian citizen is a privilege. As written, Bill C-3 undermines Canadian citizenship. In fact, Canada has important safeguards in place that protect our citizenship, like the first-generation limit. Mr. Speaker, I want to stress that we have policy like this for a reason. As my colleagues have mentioned, at the height of the 2006 conflict, Lebanese Canadians living in Lebanon looked to the Canadian government for help, and Canada answered to the call, spending $94 million to successfully evacuate 15,000 Canadians to safety. Despite living in Lebanon full-time prior to the conflict and having little connection to Canada, they still benefited from their Canadian citizenship and became known as Canadians of convenience. Following a ceasefire in the conflict, many Lebanese Canadians immediately returned to Lebanon. This was a wake-up call for Canada, and in 2009, the previous Conservative government responded with implementing the first-generation limit. This reasonable measure set out that only the first generation of children born abroad to Canadian citizens could automatically obtain citizenship. And Mr. Speaker, you may be shocked to learn that this safeguard for Canadian citizenship against Canadians of convenience would be eliminated by Liberal Bill C-3 as written. The Liberals seek to replace this safeguard to obtaining citizenship by descent with something called substantial connection requirement. This extremely weak requirement simply means that parents must prove they spent 1,095 non-consecutive days physically in Canada before the birth of their child. This legislation won't even require a criminal record check, Mr. Speaker. Liberals believe that parents spending a few weeks or months spread out over decades is enough of a substantial connection to automatically extend citizenship to multiple generations of people born outside of Canada. And Mr. Speaker, we still don't understand what evidence will be required as proof the parent spent just over 1,000 days in Canada at any point in their life. Through Bill C-3, this Liberal government could be opening Canadian citizenship to people with criminal records or to individuals who may not even realize they could claim Canadian citizenship in the first place. When the previous version of this legislation was studied, the Parliamentary Budget Officer estimated that as many as 115,000 new citizens outside of Canada could be created. According to the National Post, and I quote, "The government had no idea how many people will be automatically granted citizenship if the legislation is passed," end quote. Why would the Liberal government create a new system of potentially limitless chain migration? This is deeply concerning. After 10 years of the Liberal government's Liberals destroying our immigration system, we can't be surprised, Mr. Speaker. Now, on the second part of this bill, which Conservatives do support, that is the adopted children provision. Right now, provisions in the Citizenship Act state that when a Canadian citizen adopts a person born outside of Canada, the parent would then need to start a lengthy process of applying for a child's permanent residence. Instead, this bill would remove an unnecessary burden on adopting parents and treat an adopted person as if they were born here in Canada, automatically granting Canadian citizenship to the child. This is a simple and reasonable approach, achieving equal treatment for adopted children, and the Conservatives support this. Thirdly, Mr. Speaker, we come to restoration of citizenship to lost Canadians. As a result of compounding legislation and amendments to Section 8 of the Citizenship Act, a group of people born to Canadian parents between February 15, 1977 and April 16, 1981 had to apply to reinstate their citizenship before turning 28 years old. Those who did not apply to reinstate their citizenship lost it, despite being raised in Canada, going to school, and starting their families here. Conservatives support provisions in Bill C-3 to correct this error. And Mr. Speaker, Canadians are paying the price for the Liberals' out-of-control immigration policies. And let me be clear, immigration is important to our country, but the government must have control over it. And right now, the Liberals have zero control over their immigration policy. Effective immigration policy should be tied to outcomes, and it should consider the supply of housing, health care, and jobs. This is important not only for Canadians who are trying to buy a house, find a job, and get a family doctor, but it's equally important for newcomers themselves. It's wrong to set immigrants up for failure in a country that doesn't have the capacity to support them. And unfortunately, the Liberals have lost complete control over immigration. Let's examine health care, for example. Last year, the Liberals brought in nearly 500,000 permanent immigrants. Meanwhile, 6.5 million Canadians don't have a family doctor. The Liberals see no problem adding hundreds of thousands of new patients to a healthcare system that is already overburdened. Meanwhile, emergency room closures are occurring on a regular basis, while healthcare workers are burnt out from working millions of hours of overtime. In fact, Canada is currently short at least 23,000 family doctors and 60,000 registered nurses, with these numbers set to dramatically increase in the next few years. You don't need to be an economics degree to understand that increasing demand on our healthcare system through unfocused immigration while supply of capacity is collapsing is a recipe for disaster. I guarantee you our healthcare system is only going to get worse under the Liberal government's failed immigration policy. The Liberals aren't just driving up demand through their failed immigration policy, they have failed to build capacity too. While the government adds record demand to our healthcare system, at the same time, they are restricting supply of qualified healthcare professionals from working. According to the Health Minister's own department, of the 200,000 internationally trained health professionals employed in Canada, 80,000 are not working in their field. 80,000 internationally trained healthcare professionals who immigrated to Canada thinking there was a place for them to contribute to our overwhelmed healthcare system are being blocked from working. Mr. Speaker, I met a vascular surgeon from Brazil who has years of training and experience yet sees no path to practicing in Canada. The Liberals bring doctors and nurses to Canada for their expertise and block them from working in their profession. I was in Toronto where I met a doctor from Argentina with many years of experience. She came to Canada hoping to use her skills and experience to provide care for our people. Today, she works at Home Depot because gatekeepers and licensing bodies block her from getting certified to practice. For 10 years, the Liberals have turned immigration into a numbers game while ignoring capacity, ignoring the needs of Canadians, and ignoring the very newcomers that claim to welcome. Mr. Speaker, blocking doctors and nurses from working while adding millions of new patients to a broken healthcare system is insane. We cannot fix our broken healthcare system without fixing our broken immigration system first. Conservatives are committing to fixing the problem. We should only invite the right people in the right numbers so that our healthcare system can catch up. At the same time, we must implement a Blue Seal national professional testing standard to ensure foreign-trained healthcare workers can work in Canada. We must enable healthcare workers to take their skills wherever they are needed across our country. Conservatives know that the parts of Bill C-3 have potential, but we cannot support rushed Liberal legislation that is so poorly thought out. Conservatives will make recommendations to improve this legislation and implement real safeguards to strengthen the citizenship we are so blessed to have. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, provinces do need to do a better job at recognizing the skills that immigrants bring to the country, in particular in the healthcare. That has been a chronic problem ever since I've been first elected back in 1988. Provinces must play a lead. Okay. Now, the member made reference to immigration and tried to blame immigration as the problem in healthcare today in terms of capacity. Some of the greatest shortages in Canada today in doctors is actually in the province of Manitoba. On the other hand, whether it's the Premier or the Minister of Immigration in Manitoba, both of them want to be able to see the current immigration levels to stay. They want to keep everyone that's in Manitoba to stay in Manitoba. They want to increase the numbers. How does that not conflict with what the member is saying? Does he believe our home province, we share the same home province, is wrong on their immigration requests?
The Honourable Member for Riding Mountain.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I did say in my speech, we need immigration, without a doubt, Mr. Speaker. But to ignore the fact that our healthcare system is absolutely overburdened, and overburdened, we won't even allow the professionals that have been trained abroad a pathway to seek and to practice in the profession that they've been trained in other countries. That is just insane. And this Liberal government has propped that same failing system up for the last 10 years, and as the member admitted, he has done nothing about it.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires? The Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I take exception to that. Every year, every opportunity I get, I advocate for recognizing the credentials that immigrants bring to Canada. And the member needs to realize, and the Conservative Party needs to realize, you can't just say, well, we're going to have a Blue Seal program. There's no depth whatsoever to that program. This is something in which you have to get the provinces to agree and participate in. Has the Conservative Party done any engagement with the provinces to give any legitimacy at all to their Blue Seal program?
The Honourable Member for Riding Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, yes, we have given lots of engagement right across this nation. I was in Nova Scotia during the summer. I've talked lots to provinces right across this country. And right across this country, we're hearing there is millions of Canadians waiting for a family doctor right now. 6.5 million Canadians. And we have immigrants coming in here with trained professionals from other countries and have seen no uptake, have no path forward. That's what the Blue Seal program is about.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Member for Kamloops, Shuswap, Central Rockies.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to commend the member from Riding Mountain for his connection with communities over the summer. I watched his social media. He managed to connect with the people. We're dealing today with a government bill that is identical to a bill that was brought forward in the previous Parliament. They rejected amendments. The bill didn't bring it through, or didn't make it through the last Parliament, but they brought it back without change. It's like the old saying, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result. Can the member tell me what he's heard from constituents in his riding, and why does he think the Liberals aren't listening to people? Thank you.
The member for Riding Mountain.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for the excellent question. Well, what I've heard across the country is when it comes to citizenship, it is very precious to Canadians. We cherish that much. It is a privilege, and it's world-renowned. If you have the Canadian passport, it is sought after. And people from all over the world know that. Unfortunately, the Liberals have taken an approach where they have cheapened it. Mm-hmm. They've basically taken it and said, it's okay, you can come from anywhere, you can just live here a little bit, but have full access to all our programs and all the great things that make Canada the fantastic nation it is. And that is the thing I'm hearing from constituents and people right across this country. please protect our Canadian citizenship and please work to make that so it's cherished and upheld by the rest of the world.
Well done.
Resuming debate, reprise du débat, the honourable member for Dufferin-Caledon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's great to be able to be here and to talk on behalf of the great people of Dufferin-Caledon who've re-elected me to come to the House of Commons and fight for common sense, which is often a difficult thing to do with this Liberal government. And this piece of legislation is the perfect example of why we have to fight. So I want to talk a little bit about how these Liberals have absolutely destroyed the consensus in Canada on immigration, how they've botched the immigration system in so many ways, and they've brought that incompetent approach to this particular piece of legislation. And the consequences for this, of course, Mr. Speaker, will be far and wide, and ultimately Canadians will pay the price, like they pay the price for all of the Liberal mistakes and errors and debacles and corruption over the past 10 years. So what pains me the most to talk about the breakdown of the consensus in this country on immigration and refugees is the fact that my wife actually came to Canada as a refugee. She's a Kosovar Albanian, and Canada had a wonderful program, Operation Parasol, to bring Kosovar Albanians fleeing from the ethnic cleansing that was going on in Kosovo at that time. And to see the reports of the decline on the consensus of Canada, known as the beacon of acceptance for immigration and refugees, watch that decline happen over the past 10 years because of Liberal incompetence it's really actually heartbreaking. Yeah. And most Canadians, I think, are heartbroken by this. There's a couple of polls actually that talk about this, which are really, in my estimation, tragic. Polera had a study in 2025 that compared to views from 2002. In 2002, immigration was viewed as a positive +31. In 2025, it's now down to a +2. That's a 29-point decline as a result of the mess that these people have made with respect to the immigration system. So these are catastrophic declines. And you also would look at the share of people who believe that Canada is accepting too many immigrants. Again, we go back to 2002, it was 34%. We look at 2025, it's now at 60%. Now, who's responsible for that? It's not the people that come to Canada. That's not their fault. They came to Canada because they want the opportunities and the better life that Canada provides, just like my wife and her family. My wife came to Canada with English as a second language. In fact, she spoke no English and went to high school and has gone on to get a master's degree and has had a great career. Yeah. That's the epitome of why people come to Canada, because of the opportunities that this great company affords. So when we look at what they've done, the mess they've made with the immigration system, it's a tragedy for all Canadians. And the fault and the buck stops 100% with the people on the other side here, because they've made this absolute mess. Now, I could talk for 3 hours about the actual specifics of the mess, but I mean, I would point out that at one point, this Liberal government allowed an accused ISIS terrorist to immigrate to Canada. This person was accused in 2015 of being in a video where they dismembered someone, and they let this person come to Canada. This is the disrepute they've brought the system into. And in fact, in 2024, Mr. Speaker, I actually did an OPQ, and I asked how many people were processing applications in CIC and how many applications were actually coming in. And then you can do some simple math. I know math isn't great for these guys. They think that an affordable housing program is 4,000 houses for $13 billion. So math is not their strong suit. Fair. But when you actually broke down the number of people who were processing the applications and the number of applications that were coming in, because they had set the levels so high, it worked out that someone assessing an immigration application had 30 minutes per application. Wow. 30 minutes. So you can imagine how someone like the person I just described ended up in Canada. You increase the volumes of people to such high levels, you have no security screening, and you end up with the challenges that we have. So, again, now they've brought forward a piece of legislation on citizenship. And let me say I'm a proud Canadian. I know my wife's proud Canadian, their whole family, they are proud Canadians as well. And they have created this very weak, substantial connection test. Now, what does that mean? Most people who are listening won't understand what that means, so I'm going to explain it. It means that, according to the Liberals, if you want to have Canadian citizenship extended to yourself and your children for generations on, you have 1,095 non-consecutive days in Canada. Now, what's the proof for that? They haven't even said. So somebody could just say, yeah, I spent 1,095 days in Canada over the last 25 years, and therefore my children, their children's children, and on we go, they all get Canadian citizenship. Now, this is weakening Canadian citizenship. It is making Canadians, and they don't even know the numbers of people this is going to affect, how many people that this citizenship is going to be extended to. And there would be no security checks. So we just talked about how the lack of security checks let an alleged ISIS terrorist into Canada, someone who was on a video in 2015 dismembering someone, but they don't think security checks would be an important part of extending citizenship to people who have no real connection with Canada. Maybe they spent 1,095 days in Canada at some point over their lifetime, maybe not, because we don't know how they're going to prove it, and they don't have to have a security check. They're going to try and say this is all very normal, we're solving a problem. Mr. Speaker, it's not normal. This approach isn't normal in the developed world. The United States, Britain, France, Italy, all cap citizenship to the first generation born abroad. Now, that's important because there is value in Canadian citizenship, and they are going to extend this to all kinds of people who have very little connection to Canada. And how far will that extend? We actually don't have the numbers. We have maybe some estimates, but even the government doesn't know, which of course doesn't surprise me because they come up with things on the back of a napkin and never know what the consequence of that's going to be. It's much like when I was the Shadow Minister for the Environment and I asked the Deputy Minister, what is the actual build-out of the cost of the charging network all across Canada when we get to the 100% zero-emission vehicle mandate? They looked at me and said, we haven't calculated that to the end point. So you're going to mandate no one gets to drive a gas-powered vehicle. They all have to be zero-emission vehicles, and you don't know what the cost of the charging network is going to be. This is how Liberals have run this country for the last 10 years, which is why we're in the mess we are on a whole host of levels. So I just had a town hall in the town of Bolton a couple of weeks ago, and let me tell you, immigration was absolutely on the agenda. So when I talk about the statistics of the decline in support for immigration, I felt it in person at that meeting. People are saying, Kyle, the numbers are too high. Now, if I had talked about this particular piece of legislation, I didn't get the opportunity, I know what the good people of Dufferin-Caledon would have said. They would have said, that's ridiculous. And many of the people in that town hall are immigrants. They came to this country because they wanted the opportunity that Canada provides. They would have been outraged with the decision to do this. So what has been the consequence of the mess they've made of immigration in Canada? We can look at the jobs market. Big topic of discussion at my town hall was my son, my daughter can't get a job, which is one of the reasons why we have said we are eliminating the temporary foreign worker program. Because far too many people have come into this country taking jobs away from Canadians. So the TFW program is a part of that problem. The mess on immigration is going to take a very long time to fix, the Liberal mess on immigration. So when we look at this, we see an absolute another mess happening that the Liberals didn't have to make. They could have fixed this problem very simply, but they didn't. They chose a weak test, 1,095 days. At any point in your life, you get Canadian citizenship, and you can then pass it on to your children. Mr. Speaker, this is a terrible piece of legislation. Conservatives fought it in the last Parliament. We will fight it in this Parliament, and we will seek to make amendments to bring some common sense to this terrible piece of legislation. Thank you very much.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires. The Honourable Member for Carleton Trade Eagle Creek.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I thank our honourable colleague for that excellent speech, for outlining the issues that we on this side of the House have with this piece of legislation. I know that he's mentioned his wife and his wife's family who have come to Canada and who have embraced becoming Canadian citizens, and I'm wondering if he could comment on what the impact of reducing the requirement to obtain citizenship has on those individuals who are coming to Canada, who are going through the process, who perhaps are even fleeing persecution. What impact does that have on those individuals who have gone through a very lengthy process? Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Dufferin-Caledon.
Mr. Speaker, my colleague makes a perfect point on this. The people who have come to Canada because they wanted a better life, they played by the rules, they've worked hard, they've made fantastic lives and contributions to this country, they are going to look at this as an affront to the hard work that they did to come to Canada and become a successful and proud Canadian citizen. They would be outraged that someone who has spent almost no time in the country, it's not even any consecutive days. You could have spent something like 10 days in Canada over 30 years. Like, you basically vacationed here for 10 days over 30 years, you're going to get Canadian citizenship. It's outrageous. We're against it, and we will fight it.
Questions and comments? The Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, very quickly, Mr. Speaker, the year 2002 that he cited immigration as being really good, I acknowledge that. What he doesn't do is he doesn't cite the many years in which Harper's administration was a disaster to immigration, where they, for example, deleted those applications, literally hundreds of thousands of individuals that were in the process of coming to Canada, or the 7-year waiting times in order to sponsor a parent, or the cancelling of parents and grandparents program. There were serious problems that we were able to rectify. Today's issues is more of the temporary visas, and this is something in which the current Prime Minister has indicated that we are going to get on the right track, and we're working aggressively to do that. But my question to the member, Mr. Speaker, if I may, is using the example of Anna in the forces. She goes abroad, she has a child, comes back, her child then goes abroad to work. Should the child of that individual have the opportunity, or Anna's grandson or granddaughter have the opportunity?
I have to give a chance to the member to respond.
Speaker, I don't know if his discussion of the Conservative record on immigration is ignorance, or if his statements are malicious. But either way, they're completely erroneous and false.
A point of order for the Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
A point of order, Mr. Speaker. They're neither. They're factual.
As the Parliamentary Secretary well knows, that's a matter of debate. I'll let the member for Dufferin-Caledon finish.
When Prime Minister Harper took over, there was a massive backlog in the parent and grandparent category. They took over from the Liberals, around 150,000 people. So we were left with the mess that they left. Same thing in every single category. And so what we actually did is we put a temporary pause on the parent and grandparent application process, and then we cleared the entire backlog. So for him to try and stand here and say everything was rosy under a Liberal government and then somehow things changed. Look, Mr. Speaker, I know I'm not allowed to use certain words in this place, but what he's saying is worse than categorically false.
Yeah.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires? The Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's just factually incorrect. I was the critic at the time. If the member was there, he would know that actually the waiting times to get a spouse was years through the Harper era. The Harper government literally canceled the parent and grandparent sponsorship program. The reason why they canceled it is because it was such a disaster that it took up to 7 years to get and sponsor a parent or grandparent to come to Canada. Harper was a disaster on immigration as a whole. Would he not confess to the reality of the situation? After all, he was there, Mr. Speaker, and I'm sure if he was to... And I'm sure, Mr. Speaker, that he can recall that.
The Honourable Member for Dufferin-Caledon in 25 seconds or less.
I confess he lives in an alternate reality, Mr. Speaker, because this was how they set up the parent and grandparent program. An unlimited number of people could apply, then they let in 14,000 people. All those other people went on a waiting list. The next year, they opened it up. An unlimited number of people could apply, they let 14,000 in. All the rest went on a waiting list. The next year, and so on, and so on, and so on. That's how they managed the parent and grandparent category. It was an absolute mess. We had to clean it up, and guess what? A Conservative government are going to clean up a lot of messes, including the...
Resuming debate. Reprise le débat. The Honourable Member for Vernon Lake Country, Monashee.
It is good to rise in this House again after time in my riding, Mr. Speaker, speaking with constituents and hearing directly from Canadians. It's always a privilege to stand here and debate legislation that touches not only on national policy, but on the very fabric of what it means to be Canadian. We're debating Bill C-3, an act to amend the Citizenship Act. This bill speaks to Canadian identity itself and to the value of Canadian identity. Let us be clear. Canadian citizenship is not just a piece of paper or a passport. It is a promise. It's a promise of loyalty, commitment, and shared responsibility. It represents hard-won freedoms and responsibilities that generations of Canadians have defended and cherished. Mr. Speaker, Conservatives have always believed that citizenship must be fair, secure, and meaningful. It must reflect a genuine connection to this country, not just in words, but in participation and commitment. Unfortunately, Bill C-3 undermines these principles. Now, there are parts of the bill we do support. We agree that the adopted children of Canadian citizens born abroad should be treated equally with biological children. That is fair, just, and long overdue. We also agree that the injustice of lost Canadians, those Canadians who fell through the gaps in the law through no fault of their own, must be corrected. These are people who grew up here, worked here, paid taxes, and lived as Canadians. That should never have been in doubt. Fixing those wrongs is the right thing to do. But, Mr. Speaker, where this bill fails, and fails profoundly, is in its removal of the first-generation limit on citizenship by descent and its replacement with a flimsy so-called substantial connection test. That safeguard, introduced by the previous Conservative government in 2009, was put in place for good reason. We saw in 2006 what happens when citizenship can be passed down endlessly without connection. During the Lebanon conflict, thousands of Canadians of convenience, people with little or no real ties to Canada, sought evacuation at enormous cost to Canadian taxpayers. Nearly $94 million was spent bringing 14,000 people to safety, many of whom returned abroad as soon as the crisis ended. That incident showed us the danger of limitless citizenship inheritance. The first-generation limit was a necessary, reasonable measure to protect the value of Canadian citizenship. Bill C-3 throws that safeguard out the window. Under the Liberals' new connection test, a parent could pass on citizenship if they had lived in Canada for just 1,095 non-consecutive days at any point in their life. That could mean 3 years spent here decades ago as a student before moving abroad permanently. That is not a substantial connection. It is one under the Liberals' plan, but it is not a real substantial connection. This is a brief chapter, not a life, and yet this bill treats it as equal to the lifelong commitment of Canadians who build communities, raise families, and invest our futures here. This is not fair, it is not equal, and it is not responsible. What message does this send to newcomers who follow every rule, study for and pass the citizenship test, meet the residency requirements, and undergo full security checks? These individuals invest years of their lives in Canada before earning citizenship. Meanwhile, under this bill, others could inherit the citizenship automatically without ever paying taxes, speaking an official language, or engaging in Canadian society. That is a two-tier system, and it devalues the hard work of genuine immigrants. There are also serious security implications. Bill C-3 does not require a criminal background check for those inheriting citizens under the so-called connection. Conservatives propose reasonable amendments to address this, including measures to exclude those with serious criminal records, The Liberals voted them down. At a time when Canadians are concerned about public safety, this is entirely reckless. Let us be clear about the costs. The Parliamentary Budget Officer has warned that this change could create over 115,000 new citizens almost immediately, many of whom live permanently abroad. But we have no idea, Mr. Speaker, what the real numbers are. Processing these cases will cost at least $21 million up front, with far higher long-term costs to healthcare, pensions, and other services. Canadians who work hard and pay taxes their whole lives will be asked to subsidize citizens of convenience who have never contributed a dime to our country. Meanwhile, immigration, refugees, and Citizenship Canada are already overwhelmed. Constituents across this country tell us about endless delays for visitor visas, family reunifications, and citizenship ceremonies. The Ontario Supreme Court has even ruled that the IRCC has a 50% error rate in processing. Yet the Liberals want to add tens of thousands of new cases with no plan, no resources, and no clear analysis of the impact. Peer countries are far more cautious. The United States, the United Kingdom, France, and Italy all limit citizenship by descent to the first generation abroad. Canada is either an outlier under this Liberal scheme, and not in a good way. As immigration lawyers and experts have warned, this bill is a reckless response to a flawed court ruling, and it extends citizenship far beyond any reasonable connection. Mr. Speaker, Canadian citizenship is precious. It is not an insurance policy for those who want to live abroad and return only when trouble strikes. It is not a convenience for those who want benefits without responsibility. It must mean more. Conservatives oppose aspects of this bill because it cheapens Canadian citizenship, undermines fairness, and exposes taxpayers to enormous risk. We don't even know what the extent of the risk is because there's no analysis done. We support targeted reforms for adopted children and lost Canadians, but we reject the removal of the first-generation safeguard. As former Liberal Minister Lucien Robillard once said, we ought to share our citizens with those who want it and work hard to deserve it. Yes. Conservatives agree. Canadian citizenship must be earned, not given away like candy or Liberal promises. Mr. Speaker, citizenship is not just a document. It is a commitment to Canada, its people, and its future. Only common sense Conservatives will ensure that it remains strong, meaningful, and respected around the world. Thank you.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires. The Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, if I may, I'd like to give a hypothetical example that reflects the reality in many ways. And that is, let's say you have Anna, who's a member of the Canadian Forces, and she's posted overseas. After her posting, or during her posting overseas, she has a child. Then she comes back to Canada with child. As the years go by, her child gets a job opportunity in Europe. As a direct result of that, if her daughter has a child, questions about citizenship would be raised. My question to the member is, does he believe Anna, the member of the Canadian Forces that actually had the posting overseas, should be able to have her grandchild as a Canadian?
The Honourable Member.
I'm not going to deal with hypotheticals. There are all sorts of hypotheticals we can weave together to make some sort of narrative out of it. I'm not going to do that. These things will be dealt with as they arrive, quite through the courts, as you know. I'm not going to deal with hypotheticals. I can come up with 10 dozen hypotheticals for you too.
Just before we continue, the you words through the speaker, I won't be responding. Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires. The member for Long Range Mountains.
Mr. Speaker, the requirement for the criminal records check is not written within the legislation. This is something that I'm extremely concerned about, something that I hear, and I'm just curious if my colleague would like to speak to that or expand on that a little bit more and just give him opportunity to respond if this is a concern that he also has. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Vernon, Lake Country, Monashee.
Certainly. I mean, the answer presents itself in our history. We've let numerous people who should not be here through. Often the problem is a lack of criminal record check. I mean, we must safeguard our borders. We have to do that. We have to do it for our own sake. We have to do it for international reasons. We cannot simply open the gates and let people in who, without any sort of criminal record check at all.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires. The Honourable Member for Carleton Trail, Eagle Creek.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my honourable colleague for his speech today. I'm just wondering if he would be able to advise the House if in his review of this legislation, he has seen a plan included in the legislation to solve the new influx of citizenship applications if we're going to add 30% more in just 5 years.
The Honourable Member.
Certainly. There has been no analysis. We have no idea whether it's 30%. We have no idea what the actual number of new Canadian citizens will be. And this at a time when our immigration system is buckling, frankly, from too many people coming in. To add to that is reckless, as I said in the speech. It's irresponsible. It's reckless. There's been no analysis done whatsoever. I mean, this is kind of the way that the Liberal government has operated, is do things because they sound good on paper without any analysis, and they end up creating a new disaster. And there are several disasters that we're dealing with right now because of that problem. Thank you.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires. The Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do want to go back to the hypothetical example that I gave to the member. Often when you take a look at legislation, you reflect in terms of the need for the legislation based on what's happening abroad or in our communities. I think it's a legitimate question to ask the member for his, at the very least, his own personal opinion, Mr. Speaker, in regards to should, in that case that I raised with Anna, should her grandson or granddaughter be allowed to have a Canadian citizenship? She shouldn't have to go to a court to make that determination. We're saying, yes, that Anna's granddaughter or grandson would, in fact, be able to have a Canadian citizenship. Does he believe that that should be the case?
The Honourable Member for Vernon Lake Country, Monashee, 30 seconds or less.
I'm not going to make a judgment on a hypothetical. Again, you're creating a hypothetical. Mr. Speaker, a hypothetical question has been put to me that I have no answer for. The courts certainly do have an answer for it. I would simply ask the member to reflect on some of the people we have let in who should not be here.
Reprise de débat.
Resuming debate, the Honourable Member for Argenteuil-La-Petite-Nation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a pleasure to take the floor today to speak to Bill C3. This is a transformative bill around Canadian citizenship, and fundamentally, the purpose of this bill is to recognize people's ongoing links with Canada, regardless of wherever their lives may have taken them. I've been a member, and since 2015, I've met with a number of families in my riding, and they've been reunited through immigration. And my family, the Lauzon, and the people in my riding, we have no links in my family to people from other nations, but I've had to deal with cases in my office, and the support, the assistance we were able to provide those families, I saw firsthand how important that was to them. And fundamentally, this bill would help true family, can help people with true connections, and to give them a status. But beyond that, it's about belonging to a diverse and welcoming community. So the fact is, we live in a world, in an ideal world, we should be able to reunite all families. But unfortunately, that's not the reality of today. In today's interconnected world, where immigration and mobility are omnipresent. Canada can set an example here to other countries in the world and show them how important family reunification is. So Canada has to take a principled approach to this that includes diversity and trans-border families, and we need to help the many Canadians who live and work abroad, people in the arts, culture, science, education, global trade, and in the humanitarian sector. Those are just some examples of the fields Canadians work in outside Canada. But they maintain strong ties to Canada. And it's important to ensure that the children of these Canadians, whether they are born or raised abroad, this is a question of not just fairness, but also strengthening social cohesion. And today, I'd like to tell you what new Canadians have said about the importance of citizenship, what foreigners who've come to Canada have told me since 2015. The conversations we've had with families about the importance of reuniting children and grandchildren. The importance of citizenship on that point, and the common values around citizenship. Becoming a Canadian is a privilege. It's a privilege, but it's often described as a great source of pride. And our government has taken a serious look at this legislation in an effort to make up for the shortcomings of previous versions. People feel at home here, and they feel proud of their journey to becoming Canadian citizens. Becoming a Canadian citizen is the ultimate destination after years of effort and sacrifice, not just for the individual, but also often for the entire family. Many families have gone through hardship, and this is a time of connection and community and the ability to belong to something bigger than oneself. These testimonies are often very emotional. New arrivals, often with their children, cling to their citizenship certificate with pride. They have a sense of pride to belong to this great country. And this applies also to people who aspire to make Canada their home. Mr. Speaker, for those who are fleeing conflict, persecution, or hardship, Canadian citizenship represents a fresh start, a new life, a second chance for life. It's a privilege that most don't take lightly. The gratitude expressed by new citizens is a deep gratitude. And people often think of the opportunities Canada offers them, especially in education, healthcare, and peace. These are the cornerstones of a better future, not just for new citizens themselves, but also for their children and future generations. Whether it's by volunteering or participating in cultural events, or just getting to know their neighbors, new Canadians actively participate in strengthening the social fabric of this country. The generosity of Canada inspires them to contribute in many ways to our society. We all know someone in our circles today, especially when you're a federal MP in Ottawa. As a government, we need to remain vigilant to ensure that Canadian citizenship remains a symbol of inclusiveness, fairness, and security, as well as a commitment to those things. And why is it important to me, this bill, C3? Well, this is the very reason we presented this bill to ensure that citizenship remains fair and transparent at a time when there's misinformation that's breeding distrust in public institutions. Canada must demonstrate its commitment to fairness, and that goes beyond our borders. The idea of being able to pass citizenship beyond one generation strengthens the ties, the contributions, and the values of citizens. The government has a duty not only to protect citizenship, but also to set out clearly what the process is for obtaining it. And the government has a responsibility to uphold the value of Canadian citizenship. If this was limited to one generation, it would be difficult to accomplish those goals. In the future, children born abroad beyond the first generation will be eligible for citizenship if their Canadian parents can demonstrate a substantial connection with Canada. In the future, as long as the Canadian parent born abroad has accumulated 3 years of physical presence in Canada, that child will also be born a citizen. The purpose and the structure of the legislation will continue to be monitored after passage of this legislation. So children born abroad to Canadians want to be treated in as similar a fashion as those born in Canada. Citizenship entails a great responsibility, the responsibility to participate, to commit, and to help make our country what it is. Citizenship is not just a destination, it's a journey. It's a commitment to the community, to justice and mutual respect. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, citizenship, Canadian citizenship, is an important step. It's a privilege that also comes with responsibilities. A duty to respect the values that unite us. It's not just a legal question. It's about who we are and who we want to be. This bill is more about inclusion than exclusion. Canadians all around the world and their children who have a connection to our country, they're important. Their history, their contributions, their sense of belonging are all part of what makes Canada strong. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Questions and comments?
Member for Kamloops, Shuswap, Central Rockies.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member opposite for his speech. We often see that the Liberals don't plan into the future with legislation they bring to this House. And so we often hear of Indigenous people speaking about 7 generations, consideration of 7 generations into the future. Can the member opposite tell me what work his government has done to determine how many new citizens of Canada this would create 7 generations into the future? And what are the numbers of new citizens this would bring in 7 generations into the future? Surely the government must have looked at this to see what the numbers are.
The Honourable Member for Argenteuil. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very happy to have the opportunity to respond to my colleague's question. We're talking about family reunification. We're talking about a government that is reaching out to help reunite families. I'd like to hear my colleague, though, how many families have not been reunited since 2009 when Harper made cuts that set the limit to just one generation. Families were broken today. We're trying to fix the errors of the Harper government.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires? The Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question to the member is in regards to just the importance of the legislation, in particular the Lost Canadians. The Lost Canadians are individuals that should have their Canadian citizenship, and I think that is something in which all members agree on. At least I believe that to be the case, and just the importance of seeing this legislation pass so that those individuals in particular will in fact be able to get their citizenship.
Le député d'Argenteuil.
The honourable member for Argenteuil. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for his excellent question. The importance of reuniting Canadian families is something that's in the DNA of Liberals. I've been in politics since 2015, and one of the main reasons is that we're a welcoming country. We are here for inclusiveness for all communities. I had the opportunity to have a family that's entirely Canadian, entirely Quebecer. We're all from the same place. But what I've experienced since 2015 has been so heartwarming, so moving. The entire riding has been able to help many families, especially with family reunification and reuniting children with families. I think that's essential, an essential part of life.
Député de Côte-du-Sud, Rivière-du-Loup.
The member for Côte-du-Sud. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When my colleague refers to errors of the past and blames the Conservatives, I have to say, in all sincerity, that what the Liberals have done over the past 10 years has been a series of errors. They've brought so many people into this country that now we're having to exclude temporary foreign workers and so on. There's a lot of upheaval in families. They're being torn apart. They've worked here for years. They've been helping feed Canadians. And now they're accusing us of things that happened 15 years ago, which we didn't even do in reality, but they're turning a blind eye to the errors they've made over the past 10 years. The honourable member for Argenteuil-La-Petite-Nation. Oh, well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd invite my colleague to take a second look at history, because decisions were made in 2009. Limits were set on family reunification. It was limited to one generation. It's right there in the legislation. I didn't make this up. And from then on, there's been a deterioration of the family reunification situation in Canada, and now it's a court decision that has forced us to legislate to respect the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, to respect human rights, and to redress the errors of the past, Mr. Speaker.
Reprise de débat. Resuming debate. Reprise de débat. Is the House ready for the question? The question is as follows. Mrs. Diab, seconded by Mrs. de Brussen, moved that Bill C-3, an act to amend the Citizenship Act 2025, be now read a second time and referred to the Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration. Si un député participe.
If a member participating in person wishes that the motion be carried or carried on division, or if a member of a recognized party participating in person wishes to request a recorded division, I would invite them to rise and indicate it to the chair.
The Government Deputy House Leader.
Speaker would like a recorded vote.
Conformément à l'article.
Pursuant to Standing Order 45, the division stands deferred until Monday after question period.
Order. Statements by members. Déclaration de députés. Le député de Ottawa Centre.
Really hope that all members had a fantastic summer in their home communities. Mine was no different. Of course, some quality time with my family, especially my kids, but also a lot of engagement with my constituents. In particular, Speaker, I really took the time to listen to my constituents in terms of their views on the upcoming budget that will be tabled soon in this House. I sent a householder to all my constituents, and I've received hundreds and hundreds of responses back. When it comes to building a strong economy for today and tomorrow, the residents of Ottawa Centre wants us to break down internal trade barriers. They want us to invest in nation-building projects and expand trading relationships, not to mention support workers through more apprenticeships and training. My constituents also want to make sure that we're doing everything possible to lower the cost of essentials, speed up the construction of affordable homes, and improve access to health care, including mental and dental care services. My constituent speaker wants us to have strong partnership with our allies and keep investing in our security.
Le député de Chicoutimi.
The honourable member for Chicoutimi-Lafjord. In 1971, after just 6 games in the NHL, Ken Dryden won the Stanley Cup and the Conn Smythe Trophy for MVP in the playoffs. This was the first of 6 Stanley Cups in 8 years he would win in his career with the Montreal Canadiens. The next year, he was named the best new recruit, an unrivaled feat, known for his unique posture where he would lean on a stick, watching his team swarm the opposing net. He ended his career with 5 Vezina trophies for best goaltender. He also defended our country in the 1971 Series of the Century against the USSR. His achievements on the rink and off it are just remarkable. But Dryden was more than an athlete. He had a law degree and served Parliament as Member for York and Minister of Social Development. Mr. Dryden left an eternal mark on our society. We will always remember him as a symbol of success and a great Canadian.
The honourable member for Guelph.
On August 16th, Guelph General Hospital celebrated 150 years of service to Guelph and Wellington County. What began with just 12 beds and 3 nurses has grown into a cornerstone of care for more than 200,000 people in our region. Through its expansions and innovations over the years, Guelph General has always shown an unwavering commitment to care for the patients and families at the heart of their mission. To everyone who has contributed to this legacy, nurses, doctors, all the staff, volunteers and leaders, and donors past and present, thank you. Day after day, decade after decade, you give your time, expertise, and mostly your heart to others. This milestone belongs to you. The next chapter begins now for Guelph General as it works to secure approval for a new hospital to meet the community's evolving healthcare needs. This takes patience, perseverance, and innovation. But with the spirit that has animated GGH for the last 150 years, we know it's possible. Congratulations, Guelph General. Félicitations.
The honourable member for Kenora-Kiewit-Nord.
It's great to be back for this fall session of Parliament, Mr. Speaker, and I continue to be grateful to the people of Northwestern Ontario for their continued support. I am here with our Conservative team to work with all members in this House. We are committed to holding this government to account by opposing what is wrong and proposing alternatives in the national interest. Some of our priorities this fall, Mr. Speaker, are addressing the Liberal cost of living crisis, unemployment and rising crime rates. Conservatives are fighting for stronger take-home pay with lower costs and more jobs for Canadians, safer streets by locking up criminals and securing our border. We must also ensure we can open the country for business by cutting taxes and approval times on pipelines, mines, LNG, and more major projects to support our economy and sovereignty. Mr. Speaker, in this Parliament, our purpose remains to restore the promise of Canada, that hard work earns a good life with affordable food, homes, and fuel in safe neighbourhoods, and that's what we are fighting to deliver for all Canadians. Thank you.
The member for St. Boniface, St. Vital.
Monsieur le Président. Mr. Speaker, it is with great sorrow that I rise today to speak to the death of Miss Paulette Duguay, who passed away on August 17, 2025 in St. Boniface, Manitoba.
French-Canadian communities. She served as president of l'Union Nationale Métis Saint-Joseph du Manitoba for 10 years, promoting reconciliation, preserving Métis culture, and strengthening ties within the Francophone community. Her commitment and impact were recognized nationally in 2024 when she received the King Charles III Coronation Medal for her exceptional service. L'influence de Madame
Ms. Duguay's influence can be seen through her leadership and her relationships, as well as the lives she touched. Her friends and colleagues remember her as a warm, generous, and caring person. On behalf of this House, I would like to express my sincere condolences to her husband, Denis Duguay, her family, her friends, and the many communities that she served so devotedly.
Before I go to the next member, just a reminder to members, do not cross in front of the speaker who is speaking and the speaker. It's not just for videos, but it's also a long custom and practice of this House. Le député de Côte-du-Sud.
The Honourable Member for Côte-du-Sud, Rivière-du-Loup, Kataskamik-Témiscouata. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, I am proud to highlight a number of organizations in my riding who are celebrating important anniversaries, each of which contributes to our community's vitality. The Kamouraska Circle of Farmers is celebrating 70 years of knowledge transmission and solidarity. The 50 and Up Club of Squatek is celebrating its 50th anniversary, as is Magny Gym, representing half a century of passion for sport. In St. Pascal, the 50 and Up Club is celebrating 55 years of engaging with seniors. CARE Montmagny-Lillet is marking 25 years of supporting individuals and employers, as the Montmagny-Lillet CDC is celebrating 15 years of community mobilizing. The Popote Land des Aulnay is turning 30, as is Tandem Jeunesse, and the Symposium de Peinture Projection 16 to 35 is celebrating 40 years of supporting young adults. To all of these organizations, their volunteers and partners, thank you for your devotions. Congratulations on these anniversaries. And all of this speaks to your lasting impact on our region.
MP for London Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to pay tribute to Colour by Schubert, an extraordinary London business in place since 1982, carrying out custom image framing, restoring trusted images, and doing incredible high-quality prints for decades now, Mr. Speaker. The photography world has changed, as we know, but what's never been unwavering is their commitment to their customers and to our community. This is an extraordinary business, and as Roland and Moira and David move towards retirement from the business, I want to thank them for serving our community. I speak from some experience, Mr. Speaker. Our family has had work done by Colour by Schubert. It's always been the best. You can't say more about an outstanding business like this. They have supported organizations as well throughout the community over these years. They are tremendous people and a testament to the power of entrepreneurship in our community. Again, Roland, Moira, and David, we wish you nothing but the best. Thank you very much.
The member for Richmond Centre Marpole.
Mr. Speaker, promises don't build homes. Builders do. The Prime Minister promised Canadians 500,000 new homes per year. Instead, he's delivering a new housing bureaucracy that will build just 4,000. Another Liberal bait and switch. Housing starts are collapsing, down 49% in the GTA, 65% in Toronto, and even Vancouver is falling. Families are now spending 55% of their income just to keep a roof overhead, the worst in the G7. Homelessness is doubling, and 70% of Canadians say owning a home is impossible. The Prime Minister says he's working with local governments to solve this crisis, but municipalities call that nothing more than passing the buck. Canadians know the truth. The Prime Minister builds bureaucracy, not homes, and Canadians cannot live in promises. They need homes.
The Honourable Member for Laurentides-Labelle, Michelle Beauduc. If I say her name today, it is because he's a pillar of our social fabric, a social organizer with expertise in homelessness and drug addiction. He's had a great influence on Quebec society. I worked with him for years, and I witnessed a man who never gave up. When he met someone homeless, he would not look at them with scorn and walk by. He would treat them with humanity. For 30 years, Mr. Speaker, the Lise Beauchamp House has served 30,000 meals, has hosted people overnight, all with a skeleton crew of employees. Michelle, thank you for all you have given to our community.
Glace Bay.
Mr. Speaker, railways make the transportation of essential goods possible and are crucial to our nation's supply chain. Every year, hundreds of incidents happen at railway crossings and along tracks, many which are preventable. This week, we celebrate and observe Rail Safety Week, and I want to highlight the important work of Operation Lifesaver. Now, this is a national program dedicated to promoting rail safety and preventing accidents. This is a moment, Mr. Speaker, to remind everyone to remain careful near the tracks. Let's commit to making our community safer by supporting Operation Lifesaver's message and practicing rail safety each and every day. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The member for Vernon Lake Country, Monashee.
Mr. Speaker, in Vernon Lake Country, Monashee, and across Canada, families are being crushed by the cost of living crisis. After 10 long years of the same old Liberal government, everything costs more. Groceries, rent, mortgages, gas, and everyday essentials that Canadians rely on. The Prime Minister asked to be judged on the cost of food at the grocery store, and the verdict is not good. I hear from parents forced to choose between paying bills and feeding their kids, and from seniors cutting back on medication just to make ends meet. And the high cost of living isn't just about dollars and cents. It's about people's lives. It fuels anxiety, despair, and a growing mental health crisis. These heartbreaking choices are not normal, and they should never be acceptable in Canada, Mr. Speaker. Hardworking Canadians deserve better. While local food banks do heroic work, they're filling gaps left by Liberal failure, and they're no substitution from leadership. Conservatives will cut taxes, bring down inflation, and make life affordable again.
The member for Don Valley North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to recognize the Firefighters National Memorial Day that falls yearly on the second Sunday of September. Across Canada, more than 1,000 firefighters have died in the line of duty, including 353 Toronto firefighters. They will not be forgotten. This summer, I had the pleasure of visiting fire stations and meeting firefighters across my riding of Don Valley North, a community fortunate enough to have 4 fire stations. I want to take this occasion to acknowledge their professionalism and commitment to keeping us safe. Every day, they stand ready to run into danger to save lives and livelihood. We owe firefighters and their families an enduring debt of gratitude, and I thank them for their service, their sacrifice, and their unwavering dedication to safeguarding Canadians across the country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The member for Kamloops, Shuswap, Central Rockies.
Mr. Speaker, a ship without power or anchor will inevitably hit the rocks. Since the Liberals took over, Canada's GDP growth is the worst in the G7, clearly without power. The independent parliamentary budget officers quote, I don't know that the government currently has fiscal anchors. Without power or anchor, this Prime Minister has Canada's fiscal future headed for the rocks. The PBO also stated, quote, labor markets suck, wages are not going up. Quote, at this point, it's impossible for us and for you as parliamentarians to assess the likelihood or probability of the government hitting any fiscal target. Since the Prime Minister took office, federal spending has gone up 8.4%. He boosted consultants by 37%, boosted spending on bureaucrats 6%. Justin Trudeau left a deficit of $42 billion. This PM's platform raised that to $62 billion. Some estimate it could cost double. It's time to ship around.
Député de Bourassa.
The Honourable Member for Bourassa. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I can say that the O'Brien NBA trophy weighs more than 25 pounds. Why do I know that? Because it was in my riding of Bourassa. Thanks to Benedict Mataran and Lugansdor, childhood friends who brought the cup home to Bourassa. They also brought home hope and pride for the youth of Bourassa. They also brought home a clear message about the need for infrastructure, because it doesn't make sense that more than 40,000 young people in Bourassa are forced to go to another riding just to get the infrastructure they need for training. They brought back pride, they brought back hope, they brought back that clear message that now more than ever, Bourassa must have an athletic centre. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for St. Albert, Sturgeon River.
Mr. Speaker, after 6 months, this Prime Minister's record can be summed up as promises made, promises broken. The Prime Minister promised the fastest growing economy in the G7. Instead, he's delivered the fastest shrinking economy in the G7. The Prime Minister promised jobs and investment. He's killed 86,000 jobs and presided over a massive outflow of investment. The Prime Minister promised to spend less. Turns out, deficit spending has doubled. The Prime Minister promised nation-building projects. The record, no new permits, no new projects, and I could go on. Promise after promise made, promise after promise broken. With this Prime Minister, it's a broken record of broken promises. Canadians deserve so much better.
Hear, hear. The member for Tai-Yayakan, Parkdale High Park.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I rise to recognize Canadian filmmaker Kunsang Kiryong
and the cast and crew of her debut feature film, 100 Sunset. The movie premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival and won honorable mention for Best Canadian Discovery Award. 100 Sunset is set in a pair of apartment buildings in the Parkdale neighborhood in our riding. It's brought to life by non-professional Tibetan-Canadian actors. In the words of the award jury, we experience the gossip, rivalries, and intrigues through the eyes of an observant young thief who rarely speaks but seems to register everything. I saw the movie 2 weeks ago and it's still with me. It's an intimate exploration of the Tibetan-Canadian immigrant experience. 100 Sunset was also screened last week at the Review Cinema in the Roncesvalles area of Tayakon Parkdale High Park, where hundreds of members of our community joined in celebration to see their friends and family on the big screen. It's hitting more screens in Canada next year. Now, how did all of this happen? Well, 3 years ago, Kunsung Kiryong was able to make this film through support that she received from Telefilm Canada's Talent to Watch program, a brilliant Canadian artist supported by an essential Canadian institute.
Questions orales, oral questions. The member for Thornhill.
After 10 years of Liberal soft-on-crime policy, violent crime is up 50%, sexual assaults up 75%, gun crime up 116%. Just about everybody in this country is demanding bail reform, and yet the Liberals block it at every turn. Every single day they delay, more rapists, gangsters, and repeat offenders are dumped back on our streets to victimize innocent Canadians. Why are the Liberals obstructing, fixing the broken bail system, and choosing to shield dangerous criminals rather than protecting Canadian families? Why don't they do something about it today?
Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, with respect to my honourable colleague, I'm sure she knows that we are moving forward with bail reform legislation that will be tabled in the House this fall. I had the opportunity yesterday to connect with a number of my critics, including the Conservative critic, to discuss items of mutual concern. Our belief on this side of the House is that we need to strengthen our bail laws and our sentencing laws to ensure that dangerous people who commit serious crimes and pose a public safety threat are not let to roam free on our streets.
For Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, he voted for all of the things to break our system. The now public safety minister actually said during the election that bail wasn't a problem, and the justice minister, who just answered that question, ridiculed Canadians with his Twitter hot takes. After years of headlines about violent offenders released again and again in our streets, the Liberals are obstructing a real solution right now to fixing bail. On Monday, they have a chance to vote for the 3 strikes you're outlaw, to end repeat violent offenders being churned out onto the streets. Do they really think Canadians should wait for the next murder, the next assault, or the next victim? Act now.
Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada.
Mr. Speaker, we agree that we need to take action to ensure that violent repeat offenders are not left on our streets. However, it's curious the strategy that the Conservatives have chosen. The law that they are putting forward now has been shown to be a failure in every jurisdiction in which it is tried. It is a theory that has come directly out of the United States. I don't know if the opposition was paying attention during the recent election campaign, but Canadians very much want laws to be developed in Canada. Mr. Speaker, this is Canada, not the United States, and my citizens who I represent from Central Nova would very much like to keep it that way.
The member for Brantford, Brant South, Six Nations.
After 10 years of patching catch and release laws that turn criminals loose on our streets, the Liberals are now obstructing jail not bail laws. In Nova Scotia, a man sexually assaulted more than 300 children and within hours was released on bail. This is outrageous. The same violent criminals are cycling through the system again and again. That's why our Conservative motion brings 3 strikes and you're outlaw, no bail after 3 serious convictions. On Monday, will the Liberals stop obstructing Parliament and pass it?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, the circumstances my honourable colleague raises are clearly engage heinous crimes that need to be taken absolutely seriously. I spent a number of the last few months meeting with law enforcement, meeting with people who work within the criminal justice system, meeting with people who have dedicated their lives and careers to improving public safety in this country. Not one of them has come forward with a recommendation that we should adopt the Conservatives' approach to this particular issue. Mr. Speaker, we will use evidence, we will work with the stakeholders who know what they're talking about to advance solutions that will actually make Canada a safer place. I hope the Conservatives will work with us.
The member for Brantford, Brant South, Six Nations.
If the Liberals really wanted to crack down on crime, they wouldn't cling to their catch and release laws that let repeat violent offenders back on our streets. For years, premiers, police chiefs, and mayors across the country have been pleading with this government while they defend laws that let criminals back on our streets. Enough is enough. Our motion is clear. After 3 violent convictions, no bail, no parole, no house arrest. Will the Liberals stop obstructing Parliament and pass jail, not bail, this Monday, yes or no?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Speaking of legislation, there is legislation before this House as we speak. Bill C-2, which secures our borders, which deals with the scourge of fentanyl, which brings order to our immigration system. That member has had many opportunities to get tough on crime by voting for Bill C-2. Where's he been, Mr. Speaker?
Great question.
The honourable member for Côte-du-Sud-Rivière-du-Loup. Mr. Speaker, for the past 10 years, the Liberals have been laxist on crime with catch-and-release policies. We have to prevent these violent repeat offenders from getting back onto our streets. Crime is up 55%, and repeat violent offenders are safely walking around our streets without being behind bars. Why is this Liberal PM still protecting violent criminals rather than protecting Canadians? Mr. Speaker, in addition to initiatives my colleague has just announced, we also have an important bill coming up, C-2, that will give police tools to fight crime in terms of fentanyl, firearms, and gangs. This will have a direct impact on our communities and the safety of our streets. We'll always be here to ensure the safety of our Canadians. The honourable member for Côte-du-Sud-Rivière-du-Loup. The Liberals promised that they would protect Canadians, but instead they have weakened our laws, opened up the doors to repeat offenders, and refused solutions from the opposition. Our proposal today is clear. 3 strikes and you're out. No parole, house arrest, or probation, 10 years behind bars to protect Canadian families. When will this government finally protect and prioritize Canadians and support the Conservative 3 strikes and you're out bill? When Quebec electors who are Conservative from the Bas du Fleuve asked if this Parliament could work to take action against crime and implement reform to prevent the import of illegal firearms and end the scourge of drugs in our streets, this member has the opportunity to vote for legislation on several occasions to vote for a bill, C-2, that will clean up our legal system. The honourable member for Gaspésie, Les Îles-de-la-Madeleine, Restigouche. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals' prejudice against Quebec laws is obvious in their appeal against the notwithstanding clause. Ottawa is completely delusional. In its brief, the federal government justifies its attack on the clause by citing the possibility that Quebec could use it to authorize arbitrary execution or slavery. Well, let's reassure the government there's no appetite in Quebec for slavery or firing squads. Now, when will the federal government withdraw its contemptuous brief and its abusive appeal against the notwithstanding clause? The Honourable Minister of Justice. Mr. Speaker, clearly, there are issues of national interest, and it's essential for the federal government to defend its charter. As the member knows, this case is before the Supreme Court now, and they will look at the arguments. The honourable member for Gaspésie, Les Îles-de-Madeleine. Mr. Speaker, the notwithstanding clause in Quebec has to protect the foundations of Quebec's identity, such as secularism. It's also been used much more for practical purposes, such as small claims court and employment equity. Drawing parallels with the possibility that Quebec could use it to authorize slavery, execution, censorship, or the banning of places of worship shows the federal government's total disregard for the issue. When will Ottawa stop using the courts to wage its crusade against Quebec's laws? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to say that I am a member from Quebec. So, Mr. Speaker, the member across the way knows full well that the government is the party of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. We protect and always will protect the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. the member across the way, and all citizens who elected us in our ridings, all Canadians, young and old, men and women, have these freedoms guaranteed by our charter for more than 40 years. And our government takes its responsibility to defend the honourable member for Côte-Nord. Mr. Speaker, the notwithstanding clause was the condition without which the provinces would never have signed the Constitution in 1982. For Quebec, which never signed it, the clause remained too weak a safeguard against the federal government's desire to subject Quebecers to Canadian central authority. Today, even this weak assurance is too much for Ottawa. The Liberals want to weaken the notwithstanding clause and make it useless. This is not a legal battle being fought in the Supreme Court. It's a political battle against Quebec. Will Ottawa back down? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, my colleague knows well that the government's case with the Supreme Court will not prevent any province or territory to continue to use the notwithstanding clause. It's very clear. They know this, and if there are issues, I'd be happy to sit down with them and organize a presentation with the Department of Justice and myself in our sincere desire to protect the rights and laws of Canadians. These are rights that have been guaranteed for 43 years. It is sacred for Canadians across the country, from Newfoundland and Labrador to the Yukon.
Prime Minister was in Mexico this week, and when Mexico decided to get serious about its border, it deployed 10,000 new personnel in a matter of days. At the same time, the Prime Minister promised Canadians that he would hire 1,000 new border officers. So a very simple question to the Minister of Public Safety. How many officers have been hired and are deployed today?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, we are hiring 1,000 new officers for CBSA and new RCMP officers. We are going to see a drastic decrease in illegal firearms and fentanyl exports, and we will soon have all the necessary personnel to complete this work.
Member for York-Durham.
Mr. Speaker, in all of that, I didn't hear a number, but let me give him the number, because the information disclosed to this House by the Canada Border Services Agency says that the Liberals have hired 0 new officers. Oh. And it gets worse. It's worse. Not only have they not hired any officers, they don't even have a plan to hire any officers. So my question again is, when will they hire the border officers?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, not only are we hiring more than 1,000 officers, we're also adding helicopters, drone, and other equipment. We're taking action and making more arrests and finding more drugs. So it is working, Mr. Speaker. And in 2 weeks, we will see a graduation of new officers that will be helping out CBSA.
The Honourable Member for Windsor West.
Mr. Speaker, people in Windsor and across this nation are tired of feeling unsafe and under siege in their own communities. For 10 years, Liberals have pushed catch and release. Violent repeat offenders arrested, then back on the streets, sometimes within hours. My former colleagues in policing are tired of arresting the same criminals over and over again. Conservatives have a clear solution. 3 strikes and you're out. Mr. Speaker, people out there are demanding jail, not bail.
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, I thank my colleague for his question. I have immense respect for his service and those of his colleagues. However, I disagree with a number of points that he's made. He's referred to policies of the Liberal government, but he may not appreciate that the very policies he criticizes made it harder for people charged with intimate partner violence to get bail, made it harder for people to avoid sentencing when it came to serious crimes such as attempted murder or torture, Mr. Speaker. We are going to move forward with made-in-Canada solutions, informed by experts who understand the context in this country to determine what will keep our country safe.
The Honourable Member for Niagara Falls, Niagara-on-the-Lake.
Speaker, after 10 years of passing catch and release laws that turn criminals loose on our streets, Liberals are obstructing the passage of common sense jail, not bail proposals. Violent crime is up 55%. In Niagara, residents were horrified when they heard the news of Daniel Senegal breaking into a Welland home and sexually assaulting a 3-year-old girl while her family slept. On Monday, will the Liberals accept our common sense proposal on criminal justice reform and pass our conservative 3 strikes and you're out bill?
The Parliamentary Secretary to the Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I can tell you, everyone in this House has a great deal of empathy. And nobody wants to see animals like that on our streets. That's why this government, our new government, has 3 initiatives in front of us. The first is the Strong Borders Act. The second is bail reform. The third is safe zone, hate zone legislation. These 3 initiatives have one objective: to go after the bad guys and put them away. The question is, will the Conservatives back us in being tough on crime?
Member for Niagara Falls, Niagara-on-the-Lake.
Speaker, the cities of Welland, St. Catharines, and Niagara Falls have all indicated that our justice system fails Canadians when repeat violent offenders are allowed back onto our streets. That's why common sense Conservatives have proposed a jail, not bail law, a 3 strikes and you're out bill, and more. Today, I will introduce a bill which proposes to keep monsters like Paul Bernardo locked up in maximum security where they belong. Will the Liberals support our common sense justice reforms to restore Canadians' confidence in our criminal justice system?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Well, I didn't hear an answer from the honourable member whether he was going to support our tough on crime legislation. So that's part one. I guess the canned answer you had prepared beforehand didn't prepare you for that. So that's okay. But here's the good news. Here's the good news. We have the Strong Borders Act. We have the Strong Borders Act that's going to hire 1,000 new CBSA officers, 1,000 new RCMP officers to go after the bad guys and put them away.
The Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
Under the Liberal government, the dream of home ownership has been pushed out of reach, with home ownership now costing 55% of Canadians' pre-tax income. Wow. Meanwhile, these Liberals are at secret cash-for-access fundraisers with developers, bankers, and lobbyists. But their conversations have not been reported to the lobbying commissioner. So before these insider deals drive prices even higher, will they tell us which members and which ministers attended?
The Government House Leader.
As you know, Mr. Speaker, Canada has some of the toughest ethics and fundraising guidelines in the entire world. The Liberal Party of Canada has in the past surpassed those guidelines, and the Liberal Party of Canada will always apply the rules and make sure that we follow the rules. We hope that the Conservatives can say the same.
That's right. Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
Well, don't take my word for it. Reported in the Globe and Mail. Let's see what the commissioner has to say. Quote, the commissioner has complained in the past that some lobbyists and their clients use caucus and cabinet retreats as an opportunity to mingle with politicians without declaring the conversations to her office. Now, this is happening at the same time that this Liberal Prime Minister has made sure that their fundraising events are now, as a rule, closed to the media, closed to any scrutiny from the public. We're talking about the Prime Minister. We're talking about ministers. We want to know who is in the meeting so we can find out who's going to get rich.
The Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, for years, the former member for Carleton skulked around the country without telling anyone where their fundraising events were while we were publishing them on our website. The Liberal Party has in the past exceeded the rules and exceeded the guidelines for these activities. The Conservative Party has not always risen to that high standard. We hope they do.
Yeah, I hope you do.
The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Verchères. Mr. Speaker, nothing's too good for the monarchy. The Governor-General, once again, charged taxpayers $1,117 for shoes last year, $1,117 on shoes, and almost $7,500 on clothing. While Quebecers are talking to us about grocery prices, trying to explain to them that they have to pay for high heels for a monarch who earns $400,000 a year while they're facing inflation is tough. Mr. Speaker, the Governor General, like all of her predecessors, has a compulsive shopping problem. When will the government take away her credit card? Mr. Speaker, the Governor General has understood the important work that she has to do both in Canada and abroad. The annual budget was approved by the Parliament, and expenses are public for her function. We know that Canadians expect all public spending to be used judiciously, and this is a question that our government takes seriously, and we hope a woman can decide what she'd like to buy. The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher Les Patriotes. Mr. Speaker, the other ministers don't spend thousands of dollars like that, perhaps $100, but not thousands. Yet, she has an annual salary of $400,000 a year. Can she buy her own shoes? This reminds us that in 2023-2024 alone, the position of Governor General and all her royal entourage cost taxpayers, hold on to your hats, $59 million. $59 million wasted in 1 year to provide a luxurious lifestyle for a symbol that could be replaced by a stamp. $59 million wasted on a symbol of the domination of the people by foreign sovereigns. When will we stop this? Mr. Speaker, the annual budget of the Governor General was approved by the Parliament and expenses are made public. We know that Canadians expect all public spending to be done judiciously, and this is a question our government takes very seriously. Thank you.
The member for Regina Wascana.
Mr. Speaker, in the not-too-distant past, the Liberal Party used to be the party of fiscal responsibility. I remember when former Finance Minister Paul Martin promised to balance the budget come hell or high water. But now Liberal deficits are causing inflation, and Canadians are paying the price. So my question to this Finance Minister, how much is this year's budget deficit, and will the Liberals ever balance the budget again?
Hear, hear.
Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I know Paul Martin. I worked with Paul Martin. That MP is not Paul Martin. I can assure him that that party is not the party of fiscal responsibility. It is the party that had an outrageously expensive spending proposal in their platform. That was rejected in the last election. We're building the strongest economy in the G7. We are going to get the budget into operating balance. We are going to work to create opportunities in this country. Paul Martin would be proud of that, Mr. Speaker.
The member for Regina Wascana.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the comparison, but I didn't hear an answer in all of that, and so I'll ask again. In last year's fall economic statement, the budget deficit was $62 billion. A deficit of $62 billion was so embarrassing that the finance minister had to resign that morning rather than deliver the bad news. And so I'll ask again to this finance minister, how much is this year's budget deficit, and how high does it have to be before he resigns from embarrassment?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance have made it abundantly clear that Canada's new government has a renewed focus on fiscal discipline, and that Budget 2025 will have strong fiscal anchors. Budget 2025, in fact, will refocus government spending on operations while making transformational investments in housing, defence and infrastructure. Those generational investments will get a return for Canadians. That return comes in the form of good-paying jobs for generations to come. That's how you build Canada strong, Mr. Speaker. That's what Canadians voted for.
The Honourable Member for Essex.
I received an email to my office recently. Part of it read, I went to Kingsville to buy some apples. Picked out 6 apples of average size, and the price was $8.50 for 6 apples. I left the apples and left the store without making a purchase. This Prime Minister is another bait-and-switch Liberal with more broken promises. After half a year to bring down food prices and the deficit, will the Prime Minister commit today to get inflation under control, or is his message to my constituents, how do you like them apples?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, this week I had the pleasure of meeting with the Canadian Teachers Federation. One of their top priorities
the National School Food Program. Healthy meals for over 400,000 kids, saving parents up to $800 a year in groceries. Every single province has signed on. Conservatives claim to care about food security, but at every opportunity they vote against teachers, families, and kids who know that healthy meals in schools is the right thing to do.
The honourable member for Windsor-Tecumseh Lakeshore.
Mr. Speaker, Windsor has an unemployment rate of 11.1%, the highest in Canada. The Prime Minister came home empty-handed after tariff negotiations, causing people to tighten their purse strings because of the economic uncertainty that the Liberal government has caused. Women's unemployment rate has increased 12%, and now more people can't afford rent, gas, and food. Everyone worries about being the next person to get that pink slip. Which of my colleagues from across the aisle will bring their silver spoons to Windsor to help?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, 2.6 million Canadian jobs rely on exports to the United States, and Canada has the strongest trade deal of any U.S. partner. Our government's working closely with both the U.S. and with Mexico to modernize our supply chains and support Canadian exporters. We're focused on maintaining the benefits of CUSMA, preventing future tariff threats, and expanding market access. Standing up for Canada is what Canadians expect us to do. Standing up for Canada is what our government is doing.
The honourable member of Similkameen, South Okanagan, West Kootenay.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal Prime Minister promised to be elbows up. Instead, he's elbows down. The Liberal statistics show EI use among women aged 25 to 54 is up 12% in 1 month. I have women calling, asking where to find a job that will cover rent or groceries. Liberal economic mismanagement is putting women out of work. When will people in the BC interior see more job openings, not fewer?
Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Labour.
Mr. Speaker, this is a government that continues to support measures like childcare, a school food program, dental care, a tax cut for 22 million Canadians, eliminating the GST for first-time homebuyers. We've got a plan to make life more affordable and to create the jobs that are going to create a secure future for families across the country. But Conservatives at every opportunity vote against these measures. Why?
The member for Winnipeg South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. During the summer, I heard loud and clear from workers and investors across Canada that we have what the world needs, and they support the goal of becoming a clean and conventional energy superpower to build our future prosperity. Can the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Energy and Natural Resources share how the government is advancing energy and natural resources projects with Indigenous right holders across Canada and diversifying our exports so that we win this trade war? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Energy.
Well, I thank the honourable member for their question. We are putting one project, one review into action. BC and the federal government have jointly approved the new Silicim LNG export terminal, led by the Nisga'a Nation and built with the First Nations-owned pipeline. This project will be the second largest private investment in Canada's history and will export low-carbon LNG powered by renewable electricity. We've doubled the Indigenous Loan Guarantee Program, and we are working with our G7 partners to establish the Critical Minerals Production Alliance. These measures and more are what will enable Canada to become an energy superpower and win this trade war.
The honourable member for Kenora-Kiiwetinoong.
Housing starts, but they have actually declined 16%. So let's take a look at his top officials. We have the housing minister who brought a 150% increase to the price of homes when he was a mayor. And we have a new head of a $13 billion housing bureaucracy, Mr. Speaker, who was a Toronto City Councillor that saw a 700% increase to building taxes. Mr. Speaker, is it any wonder that housing starts are down and bureaucracy is up with these two leaders running the point?
Secretary to the Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canadians made it clear in the last election campaign that it is time to build, and that means building more housing at a pace that's not been seen in generations. That's why we have launched Build Canada Homes, which will be focused on building and financing affordable housing at a scale not seen in generations. This includes the first tranche of projects, 6 sites on Canada federal lands that will create 4,000 units, and we're also releasing $1 billion for supportive housing and $1.5 billion for the Canada Rental Protection Plan.
The member for Kenora-Kiwatinoka.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals are only building more bureaucracy to try and address the housing crisis that they created. $13 billion to build 4,000 homes. That's $3.2 million per home, Mr. Speaker. It's clear that the more things change, the more they stay the same with these Liberals. More bureaucracy, higher deficits, and slower home building. And we also know that 100,000 construction workers could be out of a job because of this Liberal plan. Mr. Speaker, they're creating more jobs for bureaucrats in Ottawa and job losses for Canadians across the country. Why is the Prime Minister continuing down this failed approach?
The Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Build Canada Homes will bring together the right people with the right mandate under one roof. Importantly, a focus of Build Canada Homes will be to use modern construction methods with Canadian skilled trade workers and Canadian materials. The 6 sites that we've mentioned is just the first tranche of projects that will build 4,000 new homes. We're looking to build hundreds of thousands of homes for Canadians. We look forward to the proposals and the applications from the members opposite for supportive housing in their communities.
The member for Abbotsford South Langley.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister promised to deliver double amount of homes built in Canada. Instead, they're down by 16%. It's no surprise. Just look at who the Prime Minister put in charge. The Housing Minister oversaw a 150% surge in home prices and doubled rent prices when he was the Mayor of Vancouver. He even stated on record that home prices shouldn't go down. Now we learned that 100,000 construction jobs could be lost. For jobs for bureaucrats in Ottawa. Job losses for construction workers. With records like these, why should Canadians believe this government will ever build affordable homes?
The Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your new government has a credible and ambitious plan to tackle the housing crisis and to build at a scale not seen since the Second World War. We are going to get affordable homes built with Build Canada Homes, which will be using Canadian skilled trades, Canadian materials, and modern methods of construction. This is building on the work we've already done to stimulate the housing economy by getting the federal government back into the business of building affordable homes, by cutting the GST for first-time home buyers, and by cutting municipal development charges. We look forward to doing that work with all of you.
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, the Liberal government is once again hitting Canadian families hard. On July 15th, the Liberals quietly announced a 3% increase in CMHC premiums. Instead of reducing premiums like we suggested, they're increasing them. This will translate into an increase in costs of $500 per Canadian family per year. This is unacceptable. When will this government finally start thinking about Canadian families instead of constantly creating inflation?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. CMHC is getting to work on building supportive housing, affordable housing. We have financing that is being released at a scale that's not been seen in generations. We know CMHC has a proven track record of delivering. We have seen that over the last 10 years with affordable housing and supportive housing that is built in this country at a scale not seen.
The Honourable Member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, it gets worse. The Liberal government announced the construction of 4,000 homes at a cost of $13 billion. That is $3.2 million per door. Give the contracts to people in my riding. In Beauce, with $3.2 million, we can build 15 doors, not one. In Beauce, with $13 billion, we could build not 4,000 homes, but 60,000. Can anyone explain to me why, with the Liberals, it will cost 15 times more? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, Canada is dealing with the housing crisis. During the last election campaign, it was made clear that it was time to build, and that means building at a rate never seen in over a generation. That is why we've launched a program focused on building affordable housing on a large scale to meet the needs of Canadians across the entire housing spectrum. That includes the first injection of funds that will create 4,000 units.
Dismayed, deceived, dollars, $1 billion. And now former Transport Minister was dismayed when I asked her about the Liberals funding BC Ferries to build 4 new ships at a Chinese state-owned shipyard back in June. Turns out her office knew about the deal weeks earlier, according to the Globe and Mail yesterday. Canadians deserve transparency on the reported national security concerns with this deal. The Liberals promised Buy Canadian. When will they stop investing in China's economy and cancel the $1 billion loan?
The Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We share the disappointment that BC Ferries has gone forward with this procurement, and it's important to note that no Canadians bid on this work. We are now laser focused on buying Canadian. What we need to do as a government is ensure that work is being done by Canada, in Canada, by Canadian workers, using Canadian materials. It's time to build. It's time to buy Canadian.
Hear, hear. Member for Cullerton, Malahat Langford.
The Liberals know full well that no Canadian shipyard could justify the multi-million-dollar cost to build on this major capital project, as contracts were designed with Chinese cheap labor, low worker safety standards, and minimal environmental regulations in mind. So now billions of dollars of printed money is going out of our economy and into China's. The solution? Let's build new ferries here in Canada. When will this self-proclaimed great economist Prime Minister put Canadian workers and the Canadian economy first and cancel the $1 billion loan?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, first of all, this is the Crown Corporation in British Columbia. This federal government is investing massively in shipbuilding across the country. We're building ships in Quebec. We're building ships in Halifax. We're building ships in Vancouver. Irving Shipyards alone in Halifax employs 2,400 workers, with 10,000 additional jobs created across the country in its supply chain. Mr. Speaker, we are serious about rebuilding Canada's shipbuilding capacity. We're in the middle of it. We're building 6 Arctic and offshore patrol ships, 15 Canadian surface combatants, and 2 joint support ships. Mr. Speaker, we're getting the work done.
Member for Nanaimo, Ladysmith.
More than 52,000 Canadians have died since the addictions crisis was declared a public health emergency in 2016. Over 16,000 of those deaths were in BC, Mr. Speaker, including heartbreaking losses in Nanaimo Ladysmith. Yet, this Liberal government has quietly extended overdose prevention site exemptions by a year while failing to expand treatment and recovery. Why are the Liberals doubling down on temporary measures while leaving us waiting for the treatment and recovery beds we desperately need?
Indeed. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government understands the devastating impact the drug and overdose crisis has had on families and communities in every quarter of the country. We must use every tool at our disposal to fight this crisis. That means cracking down on drugs and prosecuting drug trafficking, and making sure communities, Indigenous people, and community healthcare organizations have the tools they need to connect more people to treatment and vital services faster. We will work with all partners at all levels to put an end to this tragic public health crisis.
Member for Nanaimo Ladysmith.
Overdose prevention sites were meant to be temporary, Mr. Speaker, but this Liberal government just extended their legal exemption by a year without consulting local governments or residents. Nanaimo City Council debated spending $412,000 of taxpayers' money to fence off City Hall because of issues tied to our downtown overdose prevention site, and it still has a deferred motion on the books calling for its closure. Will the minister admit that bypassing communities was wrong and commit to real consultation, treatment, and recovery?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, my honourable colleague, for the question. Our government understands this really impacting our community, and we share we share the compassion, and we empathize with the situation. As I mentioned before, we will continue to work with partners at all levels to make sure that we provide the support that's needed and to end this public health crisis.
The Honourable Member for Argenteuil-La-Petite-Nation. Mr. Speaker, agriculture is at the forefront for many people in Canada. We're seeing an increasing global instability, in part because of China's unfair tariffs on Canadian products like pork, canola, and aquaculture. The Prime Minister and his cabinet colleagues met with Premier Moe and other key industry players this week in Ottawa. Can the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada provide this House with an update on the assistance available to Canadian farmers in response to these Chinese tariffs? The Parliamentary Secretary. My colleague is quite right, Mr. Speaker. Agriculture is a pillar of our economy, and in order to support our producers who are dealing with these completely unjustified tariffs from China, we have added an extra $75 million to the agri-marketing program to help develop new markets, and we've also amended the clean fuel regulations. We will never let down our producers, those who put food on our tables.
Mr. Speaker, an investigation into the Liberals' failed vaccine injury support program revealed the Liberals gave away over $50 million to a high-priced consulting firm called Axero. The consulting firm pocketed $36 million in administration fees, while over 1,700 Canadians are still waiting on their claims. After Conservatives demanded an investigation, the Liberals were forced to cancel the contract. The Liberal minister knows unqualified consultants took millions of tax dollars without delivering results. So when will Canadians get their money back?
Here, here.
Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Vaccine Injury Support Program was created to provide support to vulnerable Canadians. The alleged behavior is completely unacceptable. The Public Health Agency of Canada accelerating the audit of Xero and its management of the program, and will make the results of this audit public once available. We're bringing administration of the program internally, which will align with other G7 countries and Quebec. Will ensure that taxpayers' dollars are being spent appropriately and support Canadians who have been negatively impacted.
The Honourable Member for Kitchener South Hespeler.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals put $50 million away to support those who were legitimately injured by COVID vaccines. That money is all spent. The only problem is 70% of it went to consultants rather than the people who were legitimately injured. What's worse, 1,700 people haven't even had their claims processed. They haven't even heard back. Why is it that every time the Liberals say they're going to spend taxpayer money to support Canadians, it's their consultant friends who end up getting rich?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The program was created to provide support to vulnerable Canadians, and as I mentioned before, the alleged behavior is unacceptable. The Public Health Agency of Canada accelerating the audit of Xero and its management of the support program, and we'll make sure the results of this audit is made public once available. We're bringing administration of the program internally, which aligns with G7 countries, and we'll make sure that taxpayers' dollars are well spent. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Montmorency-Charlevoix. In my riding last year, there was a town hall on health. Canadians realize that our policies and system aren't preventative, they're always reactionary. And the healthcare system is costing taxpayers dearly, and there are many avoidable deaths. Canada still has no national strategy around physical activity. How much longer will we have to wait for the Liberal government to take action on this important subject? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Health. I'd like to thank my colleague for his question.
To improving the overall health and well-being of people of Canada, healthy habits such as balanced diet, regular physical activity, and active lifestyle are essential to supporting quality of life and long-term well-being of Canadians. We're collaborating with all partners, and I look forward to working with you directly on advancing any of the issues that you are experiencing in your community. Thank you.
The member for Oakville West.
Mr. Speaker, in an increasingly uncertain world, Canada must be prepared to protect our people, secure our sovereignty, and work with our allies. That's why our government making historic investments in our armed forces and committed to reach the NATO's 2% spending target by the end of the fiscal year. Can the Parliamentary Secretary to the Secretary of State for Defense Procurement share with this House how our investments will strengthen Canada's defense industrial base and create good jobs for Canadian workers?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank my colleague for the question. It's true. Not only are we making generational investments in the Canadian Armed Forces to reach our NATO target, we are going to leverage and grow Canada's defence industry to create and support good-paying jobs, get the equipment that our forces need, and deliver to our allies. We will be launching Canada's defence industrial strategy to protect Canadian sovereignty, safeguard our security, and create long-term opportunities for our workers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Souris Moose Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, Canadian canola farmers are being punished by crippling Chinese tariffs. Yet this Liberal government, they just shrug their shoulders. Instead of fighting for market access, they've responded in the most liberal way possible, creating more government programs. But farmers don't want handouts. They want a trade deal. When will this Prime Minister stop hiding behind bureaucratic band-aids and finally get to work making a real trade deal for Canadian canola farmers?
The Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Agriculture.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, our Prime Minister, our government is working really hard to resolve these unfair tariff from China on our producer, on our canola producer, our pork producer, and pea producer. And also, Mr. Speaker, we don't wait for that to be resolved. We are proposing to double the advance payment program for canola farmer. We also added $75 million in agri-marketing program. We have also opened the market for biofuel. We will stand...
The member for Vancouver Kingsway.
Alarming reports reveal Canada will miss our 2030 climate targets, yet this Liberal government is abandoning key climate policies they once called essential. Before entering politics, this Prime Minister said he believed in climate action, but now in office, he's ripping policies right out of the Conservatives' playbook. Canadians know economic development must be sustainable. Will the Liberals deliver nation-building projects like the NDP's East-West electricity grid to provide low-cost, clean energy to Canadians and enhance Canada's sovereignty?
Yes.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to my colleague from Vancouver for the question. Our government, Canada's emissions are now 41% lower today than they have been in the past. Canada's climate plan is designated for our economy and trading realities, and it plays to our strengths in clean energy, critical minerals, and innovation. I'm proud to stand on this side of the House as a father of 2 young children. We're working for today, we're working for tomorrow, we're working for future generations, we're working for 6, 7 generations ahead, and I'm proud to be on this side.
The member for Nunavut.
The hunters and trappers organizations protect Inuit lands and wildlife. The environmental assessment process is not balanced. Mining companies have millions to coax Nunavummiut to extract minerals. Hunters and trappers organizations barely have enough just to participate.
Shame.
Article 5.7.13 of the Nunavut Agreement is not being fulfilled.
Shame.
Will the Liberals finally uphold its legal obligations in the Nunavut Agreement and fully fund the hunters and trappers organizations?
Yes.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Koyanami to my colleague from Nunavut for her important question. This is certainly an issue that we will take note of, and I look forward to bringing back a forthright answer back to my Nunavut colleague. Thank you for the question.
That brings question period to an end. Daily routine of business, tabling of documents, introduction of government bills. Mr. Fraser, seconded by Mr. Ali, moves for leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Criminal Code, Hate Propaganda, Hate Crime, and Access to Religious or Cultural Places. This motion is deemed adopted. Mr. Fraser, seconded by Mr. Ali, moves that the bill be now read a first time and be printed. This motion is deemed adopted.
First reading of this bill, Premier Lecture,
When shall the bill be read a second time? At the next sitting of the House. Introduction of government bills. Statements by ministers. Reports from interparliamentary delegations. Présentation de rapport de
Presenting reports from committees.
Dépôt de projet de loi.
Introduction of private members' bills.
Members, seconded by Mr. Barrett, moves for leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Financial Administration Act and to make consequential amendments to other acts, Debt Forgiveness Registry. This motion is deemed adopted. The Honourable Member.
Hear, hear. Mr. Speaker, in 23-24, the government wrote off record amounts owing to it by corporations. In fact, the top 100 corporations had amounts written off totaling $1.8 billion. That's an average of $18 million per corporation for write-off. Wow. The CRA has decided to give even less information about these write-offs today than it used to, but Conservatives are here to change this. We're here to stand up for the average taxpayer who works hard and files their taxes on time. Reasonable people are frustrated to know that they comply with the rules, but then in some back room under the cloak of secrecy, the government secretly writes off large debts that corporations owe it. If passed, this bill will require the government to publicly disclose all amounts over $1 million that are written off to corporate taxpayers. After all, this is not the government's money, it's the taxpayers' money, and we're here to protect it. I appeal to all of my honourable colleagues that they support this common sense bill.
Hear, hear. Hear, hear. Mr. Chambers, seconded by Mr. Barrett, moves that the bill be now read a first time be printed. This motion is deemed adopted.
First reading of this bill, première lecture de ce projet de loi.
And when shall the bill be read a second time? At the next sitting of the House. Monsieur Berthold, appuyé.
Mr. Berthold, seconded by Mr. Viss, requests leave to move a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Youth Criminal Justice Act. This motion is deemed adopted. The Honourable Member. Colleagues, I rise today to table my first bill, the Friends of David Act. This bill aims to help youth struggling with substance abuse so that they are helped rather than punished by the justice system. It would amend the Youth Criminal Justice Act to clarify measures that would apply in cases of substance abuse. When youth declared guilty of an offense can, in certain cases, delay their sentence to take part in a treatment program. Youth courts would also be able to apply certain cases where they're able to force treatment. I hope my colleagues will support this bill to give youth the explicit option of treatment for abuse disorders. I would like to thank everyone who helped to write this bill, the Friends of David Act. Mr. Berthold, seconded by Mr. Viss, moves that the bill be now read a first time and printed. This motion is deemed adopted.
First reading of this bill.
When shall this bill be read for a second time?
J'ai entendu à la prochaine séance de la Chambre.
At the next sitting of the House.
Mr. Baldinelli, seconded by Mr. Brock, moves for leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Corrections and Conditional Release Act, Maximum Security Offenders. This motion is deemed adopted. The member for Niagara Falls, Niagara-on-the-Lake.
Speaker, enough is enough. After 10 years of Liberal soft-on-crime policies and reforms, Canadians are now looking to us to restore common sense to our criminal justice system in Canada. My private member's bill helps do exactly that and is a response to concerns raised by not only the constituents in my riding of Niagara Falls, Niagara-on-the-Lake, but across the Niagara region and across this country. On May 29, 2023, Correctional Services Canada downgraded Paul Bernardo from maximum security prison to medium security. This shocking prison transfer should never have happened. This bill will amend the Correctional and Conditional Release Act to require that inmates who have been found to be dangerous offenders or convicted of more than one first-degree murder be assigned a security classification of maximum and confined in a maximum security penitentiary or area in a penitentiary. Weak and soft Liberal laws are putting the interest and care of criminals ahead of victims and their loved ones. This must change, and confidence must be restored in Canada's criminal justice and correction system. My private member's bill is an important part of and solution, and I hope members of all parties can stand together and support this common sense bill to do what's right. Thank you.
Hear, hear. Mr. Baldinelli, seconded by Mr. Brock, moves that the bill be now read first time and be printed. This motion is deemed adopted.
First reading of this bill, première lecture de ce projet de loi.
And when will the bill be read second time? I heard at the next sitting of the House. Ms. Kwan, seconded by Mrs. Gazan, moves for leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Export and Imports Permits Act. This motion is deemed adopted. The member for Vancouver East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to introduce my private member's bill, An Act to Amend the Export and Import Permits Act, otherwise known as the No More Loopholes Act. And I want to thank my colleague, the member from Winnipeg Centre, for seconding this bill. Canada signed on to the Arms Trade Treaty with the promise that we would not allow our arms exports to contribute to war crimes on the violations of human rights. But promises are not enough. Words are not enough. We need to close loopholes. We need accountability, and we need transparency. Canada and arms exporters based here should never be complicit in fueling war crimes, human rights abuses, or the suffering of innocent people. Yet right now, loopholes in our laws allow weapons, parts, or technologies made here in Canada to end up in the hands of regimes that violate international law, commit atrocities, and devastate communities. When Canada signed on to the Arms Trade Treaty in 2019, the government exempted all exports to the United States from scrutiny. That loophole has become a backdoor for Canadian weapons, components, and technology to fuel some of the bloodiest conflicts on Earth. This week on Parliament Hill, installations of children's shoes are on display as names of children are read out to commemorate the death of 20,000 Palestinian children in Gaza. This bill is about closing those loopholes. It makes sure no country is exempted and that weapons in part or in whole cannot be exported under blanket permits. It strengthens the criteria the minister must apply before approving any exports, requires clear end-use certificates, and brings transparency by enhancing public reporting to Parliament. This legislation is about standing up for peace, human rights, and justice. It's about making sure that Canadian weapons are never used to harm the very values we claim to defend. And it's about showing the world that Canada will live up to its commitments. Civil societies, organizations, and legal experts have been calling for this legislation. I urge all members of this House to support this bill because when it comes to protecting human rights and preventing war crimes, there can be no exceptions, no excuses.
Ms. Kwan, seconded by Ms. Gazan, moves that the bill be now a first time and be printed. This motion is deemed adopted.
First reading of this bill, première lecture de ce projet de loi.
When shall the bill be read a second time? I heard at the next sitting of the House. First reading of Senate public bills. Motions.
Presenting petitions.
For Newmarket Aurora.
Mr. Speaker, today I'd like to speak on the recommendation 430 of the House of Commons Finance Committee's pre-budget report proposing removing the advancement of religion as a recognizable charitable purpose under the Income Tax Act. Mr. Speaker, religious organizations are more than just a place of worship. They are pillars of civil society. Every day they run programs, food bank, shelters, counseling services, and services that government alone could never provide. They mobilize volunteers, teach our children, comfort the elderly, and create bonds of trust that hold together our beautiful communities. Studies have shown that people active in faith communities give more, volunteer more, and strengthen the very social fabric that keeps our country resilient. To deny them charitable status would be to deny the countless Canadians who rely on these services. Mr. Speaker, if this Liberal government is so desperate to find different ways to tax Canadians, this is the wrong place. Recognizing religious organizations and their tax-exempt status is not a privilege. It is an acknowledgement. of the essential role that they play in serving the common good.
Member for Kamloops, Shuswap, Central Rockies.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is an honor to rise as the representative for Kamloops, Shuswap, Central Rockies and present e-petition 6554, signed by 764 concerned Canadians. The petition calls on the government to twin Highway 1 through Yoho National Park in order to increase safety for the growing number of vehicles that use this highway daily for travel and commerce, and to create wildlife overpasses and underpasses and fencing along Highway 1 through Yoho Park as part of the twinning of construction. This section of highway is outdated and often sees serious and fatal accidents. The section of highway is truly outdated. The government owes a duty to its citizens to keep them safe. It's time to get this highway done and fixed. Thank you.
Petitions. The member for Nunavut.
Regarding what's been going on in Gaza, they're quite concerned, for example, that the Geneva Conventions have not been respected. They have requested that, for example, that the undersigned citizens and residents of Canada call on the government of Canada to do 5 different things. First of all, publicly and unequivocally reject the militarized aid model currently used in Palestine, demand the full restoration of access for UN agencies and established humanitarian NGOs, including UNRWA and the World Food Programme, insist on safe and immediate entry for Canadian healthcare workers and other international humanitarian personnel to Palestine, withhold Canadian...
The member, I have a point of order for the member from York Centre.
That the member is allowed to read the petition word for word. Thank you.
That is a fair point of order to make, but members have wide latitude when tabling petitions to refer to the content of the petition. The member for Nunavut can continue.
I'm almost done. I'll finish with the last 2 points. Withhold Canadian funding from any entity or model that does not comply with principles of neutrality, impartiality, independence, and humanity. And finally, ensure that all Canadian aid to Gaza is delivered through internationally recognized humanitarian channels.
Petitions. The member for Okanagan Lake West, South Kelowna.
I'm here very proud to stand on behalf of the petitioners for E6572. This is in regards to the Penticton Shooting Sports Association. And the petitioners want people to know that the Penticton Shooting Sports Association, which is on land, located on land managed by the Government of Canada, provides essential training facilities for the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, other law enforcement agencies, community members, and do a lot, including hunter education, firearms safety courses, proper firearms training for youth and cadets, as well as, of course, being a welcoming space for families. The proposed divestment of the land by the Government of Canada jeopardizes this important asset. So the petitioners have asked the government to halt the divestment of the land occupied by the Penticton Shooting Sports Association and secure a renewed lease to ensure its continued operations as a community, public safety, and family-oriented recreational facility. I'd like to thank the member for Similkameen, South Okanagan, West Kootenay for her advocacy, along with myself and other Conservative members that are trying to impress upon the government it's not too late to stop this process and continue the good works of this facility. Thank you.
Petitions. The member for York-Durham's caught my eye.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have the pleasure of rising today to present a petition from my riding and the residents of York-Durham, specifically the residents in the town of Georgina along Young's Harbor, about a new invasive aquatic species in Lake Simcoe called water soldier. Water soldier was discovered in Cook's Bay last year in 2024 and has been confirmed by the Water Soldier Working Group, which is a group of civil society members, including the Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters. Mr. Speaker, water soldier is an invasive species. It threatens human health. It crowds out native species in the lake. And overall, it reduces the enjoyment of our jewel, Lake Simcoe in Ontario, Mr. Speaker. But there is hope. There are remediation efforts available, and the petitioners call on the government, therefore, to do three things. First, identify water soldier as an invasive species. 2, select a single point of contact for the Water Soldier Working Group. And 3, provide sufficient financial and technical resources to the Water Soldier Working Group so that they can get this under control. My thanks to the Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters and the Rama First Nation for bringing this to my attention, Mr. Speaker.
Presenting petitions, présentation de pétitions. Questions on the order paper. The Parliamentary Secretary, the Government House Leader.
Yes, so thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would ask that all questions be allowed to stand at this time. And if I may, Mr. Speaker, I'll let you finish.
First, let me do the first part. Is it agreed to let the question stand? Yes. Agreed. It's agreed. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, the Government House Leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, given the very nature that Bill C-3 was able to pass earlier this morning, I would suggest that there be unanimous consent of the House to not see the clock till 2:30, or that we see the clock at 2:30, so that the House may adjourn.
The members have heard the unanimous consent motion request. Are we agreed? Yes. Is it agreed? Members are agreed? It's agreed. Comme il est 2h30.
As it is 11:30, the House will be adjourned until next Monday at 11 a.m., according to Standing Order 24-1. Thank you.